college football 25. Is Deuce gonna be in it?
He was just so excited, like, yeah, I'm signing in. He didn't. I'm like, did you read the contract? Do you have anybody to tell you what's going on? EA Sports, Dad, it's in the game. You just signed your life away for $500.
Honestly, I'm just now becoming a basketball fan, like a real one.
What's a real basketball fan?
Having a team that I grew up in Baltimore, so we didn't have a team. I didn't give a damn about the Washington Wizards. I just followed the hot teams, right?
Yeah.
So I never had a team I had any conviction towards. But then I started caring about the Phoenix Suns, and it sucks to care about them. But I now feel like a real basketball fan, right?
Because you feel like connected to it. You got somebody you root
for the home team. I live here. I root for them. Yada yada yada. And now I pay attention to what the conferences look like from each side of the ball and everything. I always just knew the stars, I grew up, obviously Michael Jordan, but Reggie Miller was like a huge person. You didn't shoot a three without saying Reggie Miller.
Yeah, it used to be Reggie instead of Kobe.
So I always was weirded out why that never stuck nationwide. I was like, yeah, it was Kobe. And everyone was like, you guys say Kobe? I was like, bro, when I grew up, but we used to say it like this, Reggie Miller. You had to say it like that when you shot it. It was Reggie Miller.
But it's the same thing. Kobe.
Yeah, Kobe's cleaner.
Hi, Kobe.
Kobe's cleaner. I'll give it to you. Way cleaner. But when you put that little stank voice on it and you shoot it, Reggie Miller.
That would make me mad if I'm guarding you. I would. I'd be real pissed off if we play a pickup game and you shoot the ball like that and you Reggie Miller.
Well, we would just be fighting at 9 years old. 9, 10 year olds like, shut up, I can say it. But what I'm saying is what I've always enjoyed in any sports. I grew up a huge football fan. That's all I paid attention to. I knew football front and back. Then after the Ravens won their second Super Bowl, I was a Ravens person.
Okay.
I was like, I know this team has got 5 years of figuring themselves out. After everybody retired, after every was gone, I was like, there's 5 years of being in the shitter with this team. Mm-hmm. And slowly I just stopped caring about football as a whole. It was very weird. I watched, but it was the sport no longer, I didn't show up every week like I used to.
No, that's football for me. I'm not a big, I'll watch basketball. I'll watch when it comes to playoff times. And I'm like, okay, let me see who's going. I have a good idea who's playing. But I'm not vested enough in basketball because it's just too slow for me. I say slow.
Yeah, you got to define slow.
Yeah. I'm a football guy, so I'm used to the physical contact. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like ADD. For football, you got about 8 to 10 seconds of focusing, and then you can kind of squirrel.
Yeah, it's a pop and a pop.
It's a pop and a pop.
Yeah.
Whereas basketball is just constantly, and you can have moments where you're not paying attention and you're like, oh, what did I just miss?
Good.
Yeah.
The big pops in basketball are really that they're plays that happen and you can't really see them develop. They just kind of happen.
Yeah.
And you got to I got to watch replay. I missed it.
You missed it.
I don't ever have that with football because it's each one is
you're locked in.
Whoa.
Every play is just a quick little snippet, 8 to 12 seconds of boom, boom, full on action. Then it's okay, now take a break. Now you can go do whatever you need to do. But I guess because I was never, I'm not going to say not good, but I was average at basketball. So I was just
I wasn't a good basketball player. But I think what finally brought me over to the other side was that it's just the funniest sport.
It's funny.
It's the funniest sport.
How's it?
It's funny because you ever just watch how ridiculous it is? The interactions between the players. It's the only sport where you really get to see the players' faces, right?
Yeah.
And just the drama and the flopping and
the
person. It's the funniest sport. And the bench and people getting ejected. And people, it's the funniest sport to me. There's stuff that be happening in basketball games. You're this is hilarious. This is the funniest thing ever. That's when I started watching more. I was this is just so ridiculous and funny to watch.
See, that sounds like the whole thing going on now with this debate about whether or not basketball players can play football.
I've been watching
and I hear that in my head. When I first heard it, I was enraged because I'm can't no soft ass basketball player come out here.
Either.
But then I thought about it after I calmed down, and I'm you know what? 10 years ago, that would have never came out of somebody's mouth. So that tells you a lot about how football has changed enough to the point to where a basketball player will say, well, hell, I could play tight end or wide receiver.
That's a crazy thought. I didn't even think of it that way.
Yeah, like when I first heard it, I was enraged like everybody. I'm like, whatever, you can't come out here and do what we do. I'm like our whole point is to move a man against his will. You're trying to dodge. They got plays made up for you to step around.
It's part of the game to like show that you got hit and act it out.
Yeah. Oh,
sell a hit.
Exactly. So now when I hear these guys talk about it, I'm like, you know what? 10 years ago, you would have never heard a basketball player say that. You would have never heard a basketball player say, I can go play receiver, or I can go. No, you couldn't. No, you couldn't. But the rules have changed so much now with the contact and, you know, how training camp is set up that you have basketball players being like, I could do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, bro, no, you couldn't.
I feel like I feel like they got to just expand on it a little bit more. You got to tell me what position you're talking about, because like, what a 6'7" dude gonna do on the field other than be a corner or a receiver to me?
No, you can't be either one.
Or a tight end. You're not big enough to be a tight end. Maybe the game has changed so much that they're skinny tight ends. Again, I haven't been watching as much these later years.
A lot. It has changed a lot because I'll just go. And it's funny because over the weekend I was watching some YouTube stuff and I saw where who was it? Orlando Pace, who was like the number one pick, went out like a 90. Gosh, I'm trying to think. 90 between that 94, 99 era, he was the number one pick. Simeon Rice, and it had oh my goodness, I'm gonna draw Warren Sapp. So it was like a snippet, like 15 minutes of them just playing against each other. And I'm watching this and I'm so excited. I'm so like, hell yeah, like, oh, this is what I grew up with. And these are the guys that I modeled my son's game after. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, I'm not as impressed as I used to be when I was in it, because there's so many Simeon Rices now that's become the new norm. And there's so many Warren Sapps that's the new norm.
Right.
And I'm watching this stuff like, and I just had this epiphany, and I went and told my wife, I said, these young guys nowadays are just better athletes. I said, they're better athletes. I know the rules have changed. People are going to argue with me, whatever. But I'm looking at this Simeon Rice, who I've on many occasions talked about on here. That is somebody I modeled my son's game after. So when I was in that moment with him, he was one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. I mean, I don't think too many people would argue that. You could argue about how he played the run. You can argue about a lot of different things. But as far as a pure pass rusher, there wasn't too many better than him. So to now go back 10, 15 years, that's bad to say that.
10, 15? I mean, that's where my head is at, right? I'm thinking 10 years ago right now. Like, I'm thinking of the players that impressed me 10 years ago. I'm thinking of, like, the Jimmy Grahams. And I remember when J.J. Watt first came into the league, how insane. When Megatron first came into the league, I was like, this is insane to watch. I
go back even further than
I would go back to Randy Moss.
I was going to say, that's my
Marshall
class.
Faulk. And, like those era people, like, I remember just being like, there's nobody like these guys.
Right.
And there were like those types of players, splashes. You had like obviously Bo Jackson. You had Peyton
Smith,
and you would see them like oh, they're crazy, but they also had they had a unique style. Like I was big on running backs, and it was like they're crazy, but in a different way. And now it's just like running backs is just like every running back is insane to watch.
Yeah.
Every receiver
is making one-handed grabs. You see defensive ends making 10 sacks a game, getting double digits. Like when I watch that, I'm sitting there watching YouTube. And first of all, I'm looking at the graphics. I thought was funny as hell because I'm like, this is what we used to think was great. Now it's 4K and all this. So all these things were just, I was having a nostalgia moment, I guess.
Yeah.
And I'm watching these guys play, and I'm like, I remember watching Warren Sapp. I remember Simeon Rice, and I thought there would never be anybody that good again. And then, like you said, here comes J.J. Watt. Then here comes Aaron Donald. Now you got Micah Parsons. You got all these defensive players who, and for lack of a better term, they were born from these guys. These are the fathers. You know, I go back as far as Lawrence Taylor. I tell my son all the time, Lawrence Taylor is the father of the modern day edge rusher. You know, this is a guy who was, what he was doing for his era was unheard of. Now you see it all the time. So when you talk about Lawrence Taylor, kids are like, you know, he's okay. He's okay. No.
I mean, my memory of like, you know, defensive lines and sort of that linebacker era was just like the the scene that plays in my head is just seeing that hole open up and seeing like just a minotaur waiting for you, just a mythical beast sitting in the hole like a dungeon dragon, like LeVar Arrington. I remember watching the video of LeVar Arrington, and the hole opened up, and there he was, like a sitting bull, like run through here, run through, and it's like,
and that's the mentality too.
Yeah, so I like that era of football is very different. And I remember just recently trying to watch a game, and I was like, what am I watching, dude? Everything's so lightning fast, and everyone's so small.
Yeah,
everyone's like kind of small and skinny and quick. And it's like, this is a running back? This is a linebacker? What is going on?
Remember Chris Johnson?
Yeah.
Marshall Faulks, the Emmitt Smith, those guys were rare. That side, you were little, but most of you had a Jerome Bettis.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson, that big back. Now you look at these guys now, and every running back is this small Christian McCaffrey type size. 5'10", 200 pounds, lightning fast. And like you said, everything is just speed now. Everything is just so fast that watching the guys, and I hate saying the old school guys because I fall into that category too, but it's like the game has evolved so much that I'm sitting here watching it like, I don't even know if I could compete out there nowadays.
I know Barry Sanders is one of the most legendary, players of all time. I don't see. I won't say I don't see. I would say that pound for pound, a lot of people playing today could smoke him.
I'm gonna disagree with you, man. I like where you're coming from. Though
I would disagree with me.
No,
you know what I'm saying? I would disagree with me. I would look at that and I'd be like, "There's no way no one's better than Barry."
Yeah.
But the if I'm honest and I look at what's happening, I don't think Barry could compete in this NFL.
I think he could, only because his size, his speed, his shiftiness. That's very much what these coaches look for nowadays. They run a lot of screen plays. You don't have that power downhill running anymore. Now it's stretch plays and letting the running back pick and choose his hole, which is kind of what he was known for. Like, he'd start one way and then bend it back another. I think he would do well in today's system, especially you figure a guy like that could catch the ball. I think he was underutilized because during that time, you wanted a running back to carry the ball 20, 25 touches.
Yeah.
And I think he would do him, Marshall Faulk, the Titans running back. Oh, my God. And he had the dreads. He was really good. Small guy. You can see him.
I don't want, my brain said Eddie George. That's not what
Eddie George was a big back, but this one, I want to say it's I'm drawing a blank.
Damn.
Too many hits upside the head.
That CTE.
CTE kicking in.
There's never been a player with dreads.
Right? No, right? Never. No. Chris Johnson?
I think
the Titans. I think
I'm thinking of Ricky Waters.
Could be, but no, this guy was for the Titans, and he was that. The whole point is he was that build, that 5'10", 5'11" guy, 200 pounds, 210, lightning quick. So it's just amazing to me that I was on the cusp of two different eras. I played in an era where size and strength were the predominant masters of what was going on at the time. And now I'm in a situation now where I have been alive long enough to see that change from it's less about the physical nature and more now about your athleticism, how you bend that corner, catching the balls out of the backfield. It's just so amazing to see because it's just like, to kind of take us into it, it's like the video games. Like, that's a big topic nowadays. Everybody's like, oh, my God, they're getting paid. And the more I look into this, like the way it's set up, it's amazing because you have like 4 tiers is the way, from what I understand and the articles and different things that I read, and even talking with my son, there's like the way the schools are getting paid is they're ranked as tier 1 through 4. And what they do is they go back 10 years and they look at a school over a 10-year period. How many times were you ranked in the top 25? So for every year during that, for every year during that 10 years, you get 1 point for every year that you were in the top 25. So you take a school like Alabama, who's probably been there 10 times.
Obviously.
Then you take a school like Washington, who's probably been there like 2 to 5 times. So the tiers start with 6 to 10 is your top dogs. The school gets a minimum of $100,000 in revenue from the game. Tier 2, which would be like 2 through 5 as far as qualifying points, they get something like $60,000. And then tier 3 would be one time in 10 years. So they're probably looking at about $30,000. And then you got your tier 4 who've never been. They're going to make, $10,000.
Significantly lesser than
significantly less money, but that's the bare minimum that you can get. So what you work on and what you might backdoor deals and what y'all may have going on is totally different. Like you could be, as a school, we use Alabama because everybody knows them. They get $100,000 in royalties off the game, but that's the bare minimum. So we're going to say because of this, we're going to put all these escalators in there, probably makes more money. So it just lets you know, like as the game changes, it changes towards that dollar sign.
And I would even go further to say Alabama will never make less than that. I feel like that's a legacy school. It don't matter. They might have a weird 5-year stretch where they're not even competitive against the other top dogs. I think Alabama will still make a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
They got too many hands and too many people involved.
Too many people.
They will always be a top funded school.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without
Alabama,
question.
Ohio State. There's just certain schools that even when they have down years, they're still going to be one of the best programs.
Yeah, USC. They're going to be up there regardless.
Yeah. Which is funny. USC in the last 10 years is not a top.
Really?
I looked that up because certain schools I just assume.
I would assume USC's up there all the time.
But I think if you go back further than that, they would definitely be there. But this is like a 10-year window.
That's weird.
Which sucks to me because.
That's weird. That's how much I haven't been paying attention, I guess.
No, but which it pisses me off because I'm like, okay, so you're only going back 10 years? What about us? What about the guys back?
Right. What about, Ravens haven't been up there for a while. I would be like, if it was a pro level, I'd be on that level. Like, we got two.
Yeah, history has shown it, but they're going back 10 years with it, though.
Yeah.
So, it's just, I guess all that being said, it just shows the evolution of the game and where it's headed, where it started with these big, bulky, muscular guys where it was about size and dominance. Now it's become more about speed and athleticism. Now you're catching up with paying these kids. You're finally like, okay, look, we know there's been some injustices. There's some things that we wish we could have done better. We can't go back and change the past, but here we go going forward.
Okay.
And I just think because even with my son who. They had to sign to be in the game. I know a lot of people probably heard about that.
And you're talking about college football 25.
The video game.
That's the first big college football game to come back, right?
Yeah. Since like 2013, I think it was. Like when they stopped making it because of all the players were like, dude, that's Davis. That says Davis, number 99. That's me.
So were you in any of those games?
Yes, man.
My older brother was in the game, and it was a big deal. He played for the Navy, Monty Williams, and I remember we ran over our neighbor's house because he got the new copy, and I remember just looking at the TV and seeing it was like a little pixel. It was like on the Super Nintendo or some like old video games, but you see this little pixel, you saw the name. I remember just being like 10, 11 years old and just like, holy smokes, he's in a video game.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Dude, we were in college like that you would play video games. And everybody would be like, we'd be in like the dorm room, downstairs, whatever, mess hall, hallway. And it's got the big TV for everybody to use. So we'd hook up the PlayStation or Sega at the time.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, that's me. That's me out there. You'd be yelling at yourself like, come on, you got to make that play. So it's amazing. And
you're also taking me back to a time of video gaming. Like I grew up in video games and just having everybody in the same room playing video game, a bygone era. But that's not what we're talking about.
No. It's not.
Bygone
but that was
era.
so much fun
It
because
was so fun.
So many controllers would get broken during that.
My
because
gosh,
we had to set up rules because now you got me talking about it, especially in college. You had certain rules like you couldn't run this play. If it's fourth down and more than 3 yards, you got to punt it. Because you'll get guys that'll be on there like back in the day, it'd be like 4th and 23 and they're go for it.
Bro, I didn't even understand
fights.
punts. Like I saw somebody run a punt in a video game one. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, man.
Like you run fourth down and then we just take the ball back wherever.
See, no. We played with rules in college. It was like, okay, look, you wouldn't do that. If it was a real situation, like you really brought real world rules into it because if you didn't, guys would be going for it.
Yeah.
And they have certain plays. It's kind of like Tecmo Bowl and double dribble, like the corner three where you couldn't miss. And then if you gave Bo Jackson the ball, couldn't nobody. It was like, bro, you can't do that. Like we had rules in the game. Like you couldn't. I have seen controllers break. I've seen guys have to be separated because you're like, that's "Oh, you wouldn't do that in the real game." Well, we're not playing you got some smart mouth back and forth.
It's a different game being played there. I remember my little brother cracked a Sega Genesis controller against my other brother's head because he got on fire on NBA Jam. So
he's on fire.
And then he kept saying, he's on fire.
Yes.
And he got so mad. He was like, and he cracked him in the head and ran to my mom. I swear to God, we laugh about that regularly. Just remember when you got hit in the head? Because you kept saying he's on fire.
We did that. We got into a fight. We were playing video games like you said. And, you got somebody that's up, somebody who's down, and you'd be like, dude, you suck, bro. You terrible. Watch this. I'm about to run this play right here. And you hear, man, come on, man. And you could hear it coming. And all of a sudden, me and my cousin were just in the middle of the floor fighting. Nintendo gets pulled down. Boom, 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 boom. Boy, after we got done fighting, now you got to answer to grandma. And that's when those switches come in. And I just remember being like, man, we messed up real bad.
And the funny thing is, it'd always be one person that wasn't in a fight and they get to play video games for the rest of the
day. Yeah.
They'd be like, I ain't fighting. I'm going to keep playing.
Y'all go ahead. But it's crazy how they could get you that worked up.
I know. Competition. It's competition. That's why they made video games an esport, because they're like, it's the same sort of mental, approach to it. This is real competition. So, I mean, going back to just the college football 25, is Deuce going to be in it?
Yeah, yes. And they get an advanced copy. So I think they got a copy before it hits the market. And just to kind of, I want to say, because he has to talk to me about it, I don't really get into his money a lot. I want him to be grown, feel like he's got his own thing. I think for just the average player, it's like $500 they gave him.
Okay.
Which you look at now, it's like, that's not a big deal. But, you're still getting paid. You're still going to get some kickback from the game. So I think it's a great opportunity. But he was just so excited, like, yeah, I'm signing in. He didn't. Yeah. I'm like, did you read the contract? Do you have anybody to tell you what's going on? EA Sports, Dad. It's in the game. He just signed his life away. Like, you just signed your life away for $500.
We planned for this, son. You're supposed to talk to me, Deuce.
You're supposed to talk to me first.
He's like, it's in the game.
It's in the game, baby. Here, $500. I'm on there. Give me my copy.
So how did he give you a glimpse into what that process even was? Was it just signing your name, image, and likenesses away? Was it going and doing a scan? Is his face scan? Like, how crazy was it?
Well, a lot of that is very similar to when we played. There was never anybody that came in and took you in a private room and had to do all the scans, because it's kind of you understand, you work in the tech world, so there's a kind of a template for certain players,
and they just map your face
and they just put your face on there, and a lot of you don't see the guys on the field because they have helmets on, so the only time you really see them is when you're choosing your players. And that's a picture that they'll pull from the internet or from your school, and it'll show his picture and his stats and all that. But as far as like being on the field in the video game, and I can look and say, oh, there's Deuce. No, that's not that good yet.
I feel like this is the start of that, right? Because you look at like the Maddens and things like that, and maybe Madden isn't on this level, but I know for like 2K, they try to get like the way they walk and stand and run down, like especially in the NBA. I could say for the NFL for sure, right? There's certain styles of running. Like you ever just think about certain players, like the way he ran is so insane to watch. Like I hate to bring this dude's name, but OJ, he had a way of running, and you see him, and it was just like, wow, the way he was just like stand up right and just flow through the field. It was like, and then, people that lowered their body a little bit more, or stumbled, or had a quicker step. So I wonder if when the money starts to come in from that college football game, will they start getting the big star players to come in and be like, let's motion capture the way you run and the way you walk and stand and the way you celebrate.
Yeah. I think with basketball, because it's not very many of them, and you get to see their face on television, you have to be more detail oriented.
It's smaller team size.
It's a smaller team size, so you have to make a guy look a certain way and celebrate like that, because that's what you see on the court. Whereas football, everybody's in a helmet. Yeah. You're down in a stance with your hand on the ground. It's rare that you get to see a player's face outside of like when he pulls his helmet off or he does a great play and they flash it up there. So I don't know if they'll ever get that good, but I think as far as the coaches, they'll definitely get to that point with coaches, because you see them more often. They're more visible.
For sure. And then I would think just signature celebrations. If you got a college player that's kind of like started to develop a signature celebration. I know Cam Newton. I don't know how early he started the
Superman.
But that's everyone knows that's Cam.
Iconic. Yeah,
that's iconic. You know, I wonder how deep that'll go and what type of money is involved in those kind of decisions. You know, now that you I'm becoming who's the face of the game? I don't know even.
It's a couple guys. They actually
and how much money do they get?
Yeah, well, they're obviously very different. Like you'll have the general population, which my son falls under. So it's kind of like, look, dude, this is the most y'all can get. But you take like a Travis Hunter, for instance, up in Colorado. He's on the cover.
Okay.
So, what he worked out with his people and what they have going on with the NCAA 25 video game, it may be different than what my son did. Obviously, he's not on the cover. Because if you're going to put him on the cover, then that means you're going to feature him more. There's just certain things that come along with being on that cover. So I'm going to want a little more money as opposed to
a little.
Well, yeah.
Man, give me a lot if I'm on the cover.
I'm sure. Yeah, if he's on the cover, I'm sure he got a nice payday for that. But for my son and a lot of kids out there like that, they're just like, dude, I'm happy to be in the game. I'm happy to be getting a little kickback. And they're like, dude, I'm playing the game. I'm actually physically in this game. This is me. And for my son, he was super excited because it was like, you haven't seen college football since 2013. So this is like the relaunch of all of this. So he was like, yeah, Dad, and the game's coming out and we get an advanced copy. I was like, but you suck at playing like sports video games. You're a 2K guy. Which is, I think is hilarious, which is going to take us off on somewhere else. Most football players play 2K. Like most football players don't really play Madden.
Absolutely.
It's like you always play the opposite game. Like, oh, basketball. Yeah. Ooh, I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. How do you see this playing out? Now that the NIL has opened up so many possibilities and people are getting paid for being featured in a game that has revenue over time and they're flat rating these players with 500 and the glory of being immortalized in a video game, but this is revenue over time, and do you see this coming back to bite the players or the game developers, or maybe 10 years down the road there's this reflection on what the first athletes were able to do in those first video games, and how do you see that?
You know what, it's interesting because I can kind of answer that from the NFL standpoint, because when I was in college the game was out but we got nothing from it other than, oh, you're in the video game. But once I got in the NFL, you got to check once a year for, at the time, it was like $5,000 or $6,000.
Those royalties.
For your royalty just for being in the game. I don't even know about the star players and the guys that graced the cover, what they were getting. But we got an initial, I don't know, at the end of the season, you get a check for $5,000 or $6,000. So you're like, hell yeah. I could use this. So I think that with the NCAA and especially with all these rule changes, and every day you see a new settlement, you see, a case they had to settle, now they're opening it up to where colleges can almost directly pay a player just to come to my university. So do I think that I think it's getting to the point where it's not going to matter. If you're the NCAA and you're making that video game, I think kids are going to be getting so much money from the university and all these other avenues that, it's not a big deal over here. You know, but I do think as it grows and as the popularity comes back and people are like, oh, yeah, I got my college football, it'll grow. But at some point, you've got to set a cap of, okay, here's $5,000 every year that y'all are going to get for being in this video game. So,
I think along with that, I've been a video game player and I've been dialed into that. Developing and releasing.
I'm a military guy. I like the military games. I like shooting and
the Call of Duties and so you probably definitely are dialed into the things Activision has been going through, or Blizzard and these developers. They become these big media companies that are billions and millions of billions of dollars. One of the things happening in video gaming right now is this move to digital. Where you don't have a physical copy of the game disc anymore, right?
Yeah.
And with that, a lot of these games are being unlisted. So they release these games and then they stop supporting the games, and you can no longer purchase the games, and they only exist digitally, right?
Right, okay.
So now I wonder, with these games only being digital and you make these deals up, these kids are getting paid, and then there's a royalty on the back end of it. But then at some point in 5 years, 6 years down the road, the company decides, I don't want to support this game anymore digitally, and they take it down. What's going to happen with the money then?
Well, I guess up until that point, once they take it down, then it's gone.
Because that's a big thing that's happening in video gaming right now. Is these games they'll be live service, and they're like, we're no longer supporting it. There's tons of games you can't even get anymore, which is crazy to me. Okay. Like, I feel like I could still go back and get a Sega game if I really looked for it. There's games that were released last year you cannot get anywhere anymore because they were only digital and they've been removed. No. So I wonder how that'll play into these football players with their deals they're making, and as it becomes more and more and more, how that'll affect the development of games and how long they actually stay. Because if I got a deal that I'm getting money on a game and you take it off and I can't get any money anymore, we're gonna have a problem. I'm gonna see you in court.
Well, but I mean, what can you really do? I mean, but you know what? Though?
You can fight them.
You can fight them. You can fight them on it. But are you really going to try to keep these big multi-billion-dollar companies in court? It's like if you say the game is gone, all right, it's gone. But I know if it pops up again, I need my money. Yeah. You know, and it's just kind of like, oh my God, Marvin Harrison Jr. Like,
right.
He has signed a deal in college for like merchandising and different things like that. And, you know, that was $1 million deal for college, which is, don't get me wrong, that's amazing. That's great money. But one of the holdups to him signing was that now I'm in the NFL. Now my value has gone up. This rookie deal that I did with you in college, or whatever you want to call that was fine for college. But now I went from here to here and you got to pay me. So it's just going to always come down to paying me. Money, money, money. And, you know, I'm glad to see the NCAA game come back. I mean, it's just been gone for too long, and I think that's something that people really miss, and they've been jonesing for it. But as far as the financial ends, it's always going to get crazy, man. I think it's going to be crazy for the next 5 or 6 years until people are just like, look, man, we got to do something about this. Yeah. Like, this is out of control. I mean, they just settled for $3 billion. So if you're settling for $3 billion, how much do you have? Like, I'm going to give you $3 billion. Just don't look over here at this $100 billion that I got over here.
Yeah, if I'm going to sell for $3 billion, how much am I going to lose in court? If I win it's got to be 3 times that. I mean, looking forward to this game. I'm excited for it. I just hope it's really real and has that college experience. I want players that don't make the game because they got too drunk the night before. I want them to do it correctly.
You want to see the stands. You want to see in the stands all the girls.
Yeah. I want to see a player distracted because he arguing with his girl.
No, they'll never get that real.
Why is he running weird? Why is he running towards the stands?
He's all stressed out from the night before. Like, man, my girlfriend caught me at the club.
Several players shouldn't be able to play because they were smoking weed. I want it to be real.
That's too real. That's too real. Well, they do have the NIL deals in there. Like, you're going to have to manage team. It's almost like an NFL team. Like, you have your team, but every year you're going to have to monitor your guys. They'll say,
oh, it'll change.
It'll change because you have somebody that may come along and try to take your guy. And I don't know how they're going to work that in the game. If that's going to be like a what's it called? Like My Story or My Game.
It's a lot more volatile than NFL for sure.
Yeah. It's going to be a year-to-year thing. So if you're playing a career mode, I mean, you may play one season and then next season, here you are. You may have alerts that are like, you got 10 players transferring. You're like, what the hell? Like, what's going on? And you got to monitor that. You got to take care of it. So it is going to be real.
Yeah. It's going to be players that you got to deal with because they got in a fight at Taco Bell.
I hope it's not that serious.
And we
I
got this on TikTok.
Del Taco out here.
I can't wait to see you in the game, Deuce.
I can't either. I can't wait to play the game. Thanks for tuning in to The Route. Don't forget to subscribe and connect with us on socials for exclusive updates. We'll see you next week.